I am so excited for this episode because it is featuring my very talented friends and colleagues, Alexander and Vanessa Wendl of Toad Atelier.
Hi everyone.
We're so delighted to be able to host this exhibition, Selections from the Toad Atelier Collection, at my gallery, Larissa Wild Fine Art. And it's going to feature about 35 rare artifacts spanning the history of mid-century modern design that are in your Toad Atelier collection. Can you share about the themes that inspired which items you selected for your collection?
First of all, thank you so much again for inviting us today. I know we've been talking about this a lot, and finally it's happening, and it couldn't be a more beautiful topic for us to talk about. So with the items we selected, we kind of wanted to showcase the development and the influence mid-century design had in a, of course, much smaller scheme, but that's what we wanted to share. And of course, we have to start with the very infamous 1942 Eames splint. I know you can see it behind in the background, which is very fitting, but it's just the beginning for such a milestone in mid-century design or design in general. Because first of all, for the machine, the Eames is invented for bending the wood in exactly the shapes they needed to. But also, since this is not like furniture at all, even though it hangs there, was such a revolutionary item they did, produced by Evans Plywood Company. It was revolutionary in sense of, in the war back then, they used mostly metal splints for injured soldiers, but they would cause more harm than they actually solved. So the ergonomical shape and the light weight of it allowed the soldiers' legs to heal properly. So that's really fascinating. And speaking of that Kazam wood bending machine, that made it possible for them to actually then dive into their plywood line and the DCM and SCM chairs. And we are so delighted to have a DCM chair on display. And of course, you can't speak about chairs and not mention the fiberglass chairs, which we have both featured physical chairs from Japan and Germany, and also, of course, the original US ones. And then accompanying to this, the ads and graphic design, the fantastic work they did, which I don't know any design today that's as satisfying to watch as those were, because it's just wonderful and perfect. So you'll see a lot of that too. And we also dive into, at least on the surface, the designers that worked for Herman Miller. For example, Alexander Girard, which I know many people will be happy to see a glimpse of because he's such an icon. If you think about mid-century, you have this kind of more depressing era in history post-war, and his designs were just so playful and beautiful. So that's such a very good contrast to the rest of the furniture, and so accompanying to it too. And then, of course, with Irving Harper, not the work he did for Herman Miller itself, but his private life and his sculptures he did, which is so fantastic.
Oh, wow. Oh, this is going to be so exciting. Something I love about the exhibition is how you've included international examples of mid-century modern designs, such as Eames designs made for the European market and a wonderful pair of chairs from Japan with their accompanying wood boxes. Did your own international identity, being based in Hamburg, Germany, shape this perspective?
Definitely a yes. As I started collecting furniture, and especially the mid-century design period, I felt totally lonely here in Hamburg, Germany, because my focus was so orientated to the United States, and a lot of collectors and friends were located there. So all in all, it can be kind of depressing to be here in Germany, feeling alone and not being in the area of the birthplace of Charles and Ray or Hans and Florence Knoll, for example. But after a while, I really started to shift my focus and my perspective on it, because if you imagine, Ray and Charles also were kind of international oriented people too, and traveled around the globe and experienced other cultures. And the fact that Herman Miller also became international, and Knoll, I think, even earlier, yeah, 52, I think, and Herman Miller 57. So that kind of started making a change in my mind that there are also topics here in Europe or maybe in Asia or England or France, which are also very interesting to look for. And if you go down that road of research, you also meet other people who have the same interests. After realizing that, I felt that kind of homey vibe again, to have people around me who share the same passion. Yeah, the Eameses and also the Knolls are everywhere. They are international. And that was a really good thing.
It's interesting you say the birthplace being in America. I really think back to the Bauhaus and the origins being in Germany, and it was situational that had to be abandoned and took root in the United States. So I
Absolutely.
feel like in a way it's a bit of a coming home.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the Bauhaus. It's so crazy because they are so connected to each other. Mid-century design learns so much from the problems they solved at the Bauhaus in the 20s or 30s. And that's also something which really grounds me, right?
Yeah.
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 And I think about Germany or Europe in a whole, and it's a melting pot of design. You have the Italian design, the Bauhaus, the French design. So why do you orientate it with your thoughts to be in the US only? It's design is a language for everybody.
Oh, I love that.
I have
Yeah.
a little funny story I tell you, because in our Toad Atelier service is also included some kind of photo editing or digitizing collections as well. And one day we were going through some digital documents of the Eames Institute, piles of documents, and we found one particular postcard from the early age of Charles Eames. I think he was maybe 21, 22, and was traveling around the globe to experience new cities and cultures. And we recognized one particular postcard from Hamburg. And it was so mind-blowing for us that this is our hometown and Charles was here. And it felt like a little sign for us to say, hey, Alex and Vanessa, it's okay to be here. It's okay. Yeah. And it wasn't the reason after that to stay here, but definitely a good feeling, a good vibe.
It's a good thing, like somebody deeming something important enough to paint it or draw it shifts your perspective a bit. And maybe you have not liked your city as much as you did at that time. And then it shifts your perspective back to where, oh, maybe I should like this more. And someone sees something in it I maybe don't. So be proud of it. It's a sense of pride, I guess, too.
Beautiful. You received a missive from the past from Charles.
Yeah.
Can you share a bit about your collecting philosophy? Like what first motivated you to start and what keeps you going?
It's so funny that you asked that, because I think it all started basically with me wanting to have some chairs for my birthday, because we were just renovating the kitchen and Alex got, I don't know which ones you got. Do you remember?
I think it was a fiberglass armchair.
Yeah. Or at least like the Vitra remakes, kind of, because everyone seems to start with Vitra when collecting. So that's how it started. And I know that that day was my birthday and we went to the museum in Munich and they had this huge collection of mid-century furniture too. And I remember us walking through and taking photos, and that kind of started the whole thing. And then Sundays of us going to the local like news paper shop and looking through magazines and then finding the first inspiration, which you are talking about in the blog too, finding Steve Cabella's home, and that kind of kicked it off. And I guess we've been doing this ever since. This was in probably 2013, I guess, even. So it's been a while.
Over 10 years.
And regarding our philosophy, there are three things that are most important for us. That's preservation, sharing, and the enjoyment. So preservation, because working in an auction house and having seen other archives, you would think that people like store items properly, but if you really dove into that, it's appalling sometimes because many people invest a lot of money in the items itself, but just not in protecting them. And also, I mean, of course, restoration and proper storage is expensive, but you have an obligation to protect historical things. And it might have been like the smallest pieces of paper or something. It's still a piece that can be connected to a certain time in history. There's the obligation there. So that's a huge part for us. That's so super important because without that, we wouldn't be able to share the stuff at all online because the things wouldn't exist. So sharing in a sense of that so many people are hiding away their collections, or institutes are hiding away their collections behind the bars and not showing this, or just showing certain things and keeping the rest to market it at a later time. And that sits not really right with us. So we like to bring our stuff to people. I know like Instagram has been up until now our main source of sharing stuff. And of course, we have a lot more than we share on that. So we need to keep working on the sharing part too. But just in general for the feels, because that's the third part, enjoyment. We have to take a step back and remember what things we have and enjoy it. And that's why we live with so many things and change it up. And also the nice thing about having friends that are enjoying the same things is we can share the stuff with each other. And for example, so many of the pieces we have are either exchanged with friends or like bought and sold. And so that's just a nice add-on for the feels to walk through your living room and see, oh, that's from whoever. And that's really awesome. I love that so much.
Like there's a story behind everything. Everything has meaning, and that meaning, when you slow down and spend time with it and appreciate it, brings such joy.
Very much.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's really beautiful. And I love how you are also bringing it into the moment with enjoying it. And that's kind of related to my next question, in that as a fellow super fan of Irving Harper and his designs, I was really excited that you included both Irving Harper's graphic designs for Herman Miller, as well as the unique paper sculptures he made in his private studio practice at home. So to me, those sculptures, they underscore a theme that I feel often is overshadowed in the relic hunting culture of mid-century modern collecting, which is that the original designers were focused on creating, and their imaginations were forward thinking, and they were dreaming up their next creation rather than fixated on what already existed. And so I really appreciated how you wove that thread of inspiration into your curatorial selections in the exhibition, because I feel like if some of those designers could come back through time and speak to us today, they'd be really surprised and shocked that more of us who love mid-century modern design aren't using our scholarship as a springboard for our own creativity, making new things. Do you have any thoughts about this as collectors who also create?
I love that question, Sarah, because Harper is deep in my heart at the moment, because I have a really restless mind. And if I look at Harper's work after my daily work, it really calms me down immediately. And it's kind of that feeling that I can feel the object and also the relaxation Harper had when he created this paper relief or paper sculpture. I think creation is so important. It is equally to healing in my mind. And creating things can be the easiest way of thinking, like going outside and collecting leaves from a tree and put them on a paper in a different color scheme, for example. But important is to not set in pressure. It has to be for yourself. And that's what also Harper did. It wasn't really public out there that he created this work. And it was only for him to calm down. And I think that's important because nowadays you are so overwhelmed with ideas through TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and also so extremely influenced, and that creates so much pressure that you are really not getting into the kind of creation mode for yourself, for your inner soul. I think it's super important.
I love that you just talked about this, because oftentimes when we go to visit a museum or we see an exhibition, there's somewhat of a separation, but identifying that feeling that you can somehow tap into the zone of flow that Harper was in or any other creator and use that as inspiration and as almost like a meditation. I think that's so beautiful that you just shared that.
I agree. My own experience as someone who loves mid-century modern design as well and is a scholar of it, the inspiration that those designers gave me about how to live a creative life is one of the biggest gifts. I adore their work and what they created, but also the way that they lived their designs, and that creativity permeated everything that they did in their daily life. That to me has been the biggest gift in terms of inspiration in my own life.
I love that so much. It is so powerful. Creativity belongs to all of us. And I think that no matter what the starting point of the conversation, you know, like this wonderful exhibit that we're putting on with you guys at Toad Atelier, it's a starting point, and it all comes back to this very human piece that allows connection, meaning, and healing. Tell me, guys, about the new concept of Toad Atelier, and what's the difference to Toad Archive, which was founded a couple of years ago?
Toad Archive was just about finding private collections and sharing them online. But as Vanessa already said, it was clear for us to not having the ability to move on with that because it took so much pressure, time, and also financial wise, it was way too heavy on our shoulders. So we have to rethink everything. And the Toad Atelier way of thinking is now we have two separate business pillars, and the one sector is the service sector, which we use to offer digitization for institutions or private clients. And the other pillar is that membership area where we host our own in-house collection.
And it's not just the in-house collection, because like, as I said earlier, the enjoyment got a bit lost over the years. And so even with the archive, like you said, it put a lot of pressure onto our shoulders. We enjoyed seeing the stuff because obviously it's beautiful, but it dragged our own creativity down so much. So with that membership side of things, it's kind of like reclaiming all the bits and pieces we love, and like there's no limitation into which direction we want to push this. And I think that's the most beautiful part about it. The other one is the we want to survive somehow part, and that's the creative part.
But the way of sharing private collection is not over. So
No.
we definitely put it into the membership.
This is so exciting. Can you tell us a little bit more about the membership? Like what people can expect to be a member, and is it accessible for free?
So there's actually like two membership choices you can make. And we, on purpose, we want the free one to be like, they should access everything. And that includes every point in the membership, like blogs, then the collection we put on, or like the other stuff.
And our old philosophy to make knowledge available for everybody.
Yeah, we want to keep it free. And then the other one is, I think it's €5 and €10. You can choose which one you want per month. And it's the same exact things. We do not hide any content behind that paywall.
No.
It's just somewhat giving people the opportunity to, like, maybe they want to give back to, if they appreciate what we are doing and want to support us. So that's more like, if you want to support us, hey, feel free if you have like $5 left over or something. So that was the idea behind that. But in general, we want to keep that one free because it's for fun. And we don't want to overshadow that with anything.
Love that you have still grounded it in the philosophy of access, so that there's no paywalled content, but you are giving people who love and support the mission of what you're doing a way that they can help contribute towards the costs of doing that, because there still are costs in doing that you're making this offering for all of us to learn from and be inspired from. So I have so much respect for how you have structured this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's awesome to hear.
Yeah, 100%. I think if people don't have access to something, how are they going to know if they want to support it? So it makes sense. How do you want to deal with new external collections that you guys want to publish?
People can bring over their collections whenever they want still. But don't forget, we are limited. We are only 2 people. So major collection will take us a lot of time to put on there. And we definitely plan it for the future. We have still one in backup with Sarah, the
Yes.
Henry Steig jewelry collection. So we are very excited about this.
Yeah, I'm going to be on your mailing list. I think I'll be the second one. Sarah's probably already signed up. I'm signed up already.
That's awesome.
One of the very cool pieces in the exhibition at Larissa's gallery is a large-scale photograph of a New York scene. Can you tell us a little bit more about the background story of this particular piece?
So funny you ask that because it's really an interesting story. We got that one over 2 years ago now in 2022.
Corona times.
Corona
Okay.
times. Yes,
Yeah.
even while we were like in the US, we acquired a huge collection that turned out to be by Dr. Robert Blige. I
Yeah.
hope I didn't butcher his name. I'm so sorry. And he was an ex-Herman Miller employee and worked closely with the designers. So the photo was kind of forgotten in that collection, and we focused more on the paper ephemera and the rest that we had. So when it came time to finally work on the photograph, we wanted to find out what it was. We had a feeling it was part of the photography and the city exhibition the Eameses did in '68, but there was no evidence in the exhibition documentation that we found on the internet. Just a short note, the exhibition showcased photographs from different, very important photographers, Alfred Stieglitz, Emil Zola, and many more. And it focused on urban photography, architecture, and map making, and so on. Just there as a side note. So we tried to find out about the photograph. I think with your help, Sarah, we contacted the Library of Congress, and Tracy Barton, very lovely woman, tried to help us find something.
She was great, yeah.
And she found the exact contact sheet that photograph was on. And that was such a, like, it tied everything back together because now we knew for sure that this photograph was part of it. Bringing that one over is a whole nother story. And then we had to, of course, with our philosophy, restore it because it was quite in a bad shape. When it was shipped over, it was quite tightly rolled up into a shipping tube, and then all the edges were very fragile and frayed.
And it had burning damage,
on the bottom of the picture. So we took that to Munich to a great restoration place, and they had it flattened it out so we could eventually put it into a fitting frame. And we didn't erase any things from the past. We just wanted it to be as stable as possible, to have it preserved, but we didn't have them retouch anything.
Just the cleaning and taking care of the edges, as you said, or cracks.
And they put a special paper and glue to the edges so nothing would happen. And then like even the burning damage, because they asked us if we wanted to erase that, but we just got like backing paper that was essentially the same color as the burning holes, so we can back that behind that. So it looks tied in together. It's perfect as it is.
And a teaser for the membership. I love how you are going to include content in there about various preservation projects for items in your collection, and also sharing more about your philosophy of preservation, because that kind of information is really hard for people to access. So that's going to be another incredibly beneficial thing about the membership.
I think that's super important for people to know when they receive a totally damaged object. What can I do? So
like even the Irving Harper that's sitting beside Alex right now, that one, you'll see the photos if you look on the website. It was like completely destroyed. That it looks like it looks now is just
super sad.
Fantastic. And I also think oftentimes when people hear like restoration of pieces, they think like super expensive, but actually with good like a team restoring the pieces, you have options you can choose from. So
you can really level the costs. Right? And
so even for the private people at home wanting to keep their family heirlooms alive, it's good to know and see that there are different options and like possibilities.
Also, what a lot of people don't realize is that there's restoration and there's conservation. And you spoke about, with the New York photo that we're talking about, getting it to a stable state, but keeping the pieces of the story. And these are choices that collectors have. Like, do they want to conserve it and just keep it as stable as possible and leave visible imperfections, or do they want to restore? And the decision would be based on so many different things, and I would imagine you could help guide people through that with your membership.
Or at least tell our story and give the advice or the mistakes we maybe made at first. Because there are so many different specialists, like paper specialists. I think the German person thinks that every
one restorer can everything.
Yeah, and that's totally not true. And a good place will send you to another address to like get good.
Yeah.
Like
find a specialist that really knows what they're doing in that medium, because each medium has such specific idiosyncrasies to how the medium can be restored, conserved, or how it behaves over time.
So exactly. The responsible professionals will definitely provide recommendations for a specialist in the particular area that is needed.
So creating a consumer end product can be difficult. There's a lot of things that go into making it. And it was so great to look through some of the objects like the Herman Miller Collections prototype catalogue and notice how the designs evolved over time. Could you guide us through the process that is in this prototype booklet?
The prototype is actually something similar to the photography. It's super special and rare. It's one of a kind. And it was also in the same collection we acquired. It's a small booklet, very tiny, I think around about 4 times 3 inches. So it's very delicate. And for a collector, especially the graphic collectors, there are 4 major graphic works out there. The 48 catalog, the 52 catalog, the 55, and the 64. So these are 4 major catalogs a graphic collector have to have in the collection. And the prototype is about the 52 collections binder from Herman Miller. And it's super fun to compare them, also the inside sheets.
Yeah.
And the prototype is all about the Charles and Ray Eames furniture. So the most iconic pages of the original catalog are in the prototype. That's super special. You have to imagine you're flipping through the original photographs, glued in, handmade, with some pages are even mock-ups glued on foils or some sketches in it.
Just the techniques they use.
It's crazy.
Like, it's a little glimpse on how designers worked back then in the different areas, not just the furniture part, but also the
and to imagine that they were all sitting together with that tiny little booklet and handed it over to Charles and Ray. Oh my God, it's the golden age. It's really an example of the early start of graphic design for Charles and Ray.
And we've spoken so much about these objects. I want to remind everybody that these are all going to be on display in your exhibition. We'll have the links in the show notes, but you can go to larissawild.com and go and see the exhibition through our Gallery Artsy page. And you can have a look and put pictures to all of these objects that we've been talking about.
And the membership is going to be launching through the Toad Atelier website, which we'll also have linked in the show notes.
So great, guys.
It's so awesome.
We're so happy to have you. And thank you for sharing your expertise and the sense of joy that can come out of collecting. And I have so much respect for how you have grounded your collecting philosophy in enjoyment and peace and health now, because I think that's something that a lot of people in the collecting world sometimes lose sight of. And so it's really refreshing for me to be able to showcase your own journey through it, because I think it's a really important and inspiring example for all of us.
It really means a lot to us.
Very much. It's been quite a while to acknowledge that we're at a point where we have to change something, but that's the kind of change we really needed. So it's awesome. And it's especially awesome to share it. And so thank you guys so much.
Thank you for being on today. We love having you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Art Elevator podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to sharing this exhibition with the world. Jump on, links in the show note, and to the membership as well. And we will see you on the next episode.